original punk rock with one of Manchester's original punk rockers, Eddie Mooney and The Grave, and I'm delighted to say that the band are with me tonight. Eddie, Mike and Dave, how you doing, lads?
Very well, thank you.
It's really, really good to see you. We're going to talk a lot about the past, the present and the future of the band, the fact that all these years on you're still at it. First of all, before we do that, I'm going to play a record, I Bought 3 Eggs. Now, this is one of your songs. Eddie, tell us, before we play it, a little bit about this song.
Well, Mike and I, we made this record back in 1978, I think, and it came out in 1979. It was our first single. We were young lads, and it's been re-released multiple times since, and with a song title like that, it's got to be great, hasn't it?
Let's have it. This is Eddie Mooney The Grave on Tameside Radio. This is I Bought 3 Eggs. Eddie Mooney and The Grave on Tameside Radio, and I Bought 3 Eggs. You are listening to the Dave Sweetmore Show. Real special show tonight. John Coughlin coming up in the second hour of the show. But right now, it's all about original Mancunian rock and roll punk. And Eddie Mooney and The Grave are live in the studio with me. Eddie, Mike and Dave. We spoke to you before we played that song. Thank you for taking the time out to join us tonight. Eddie, let's go back to the beginning. 1978. How were this band formed?
Well, at the time, the punk thing had just about started, and I went to see T-Rex at the Apollo in Manchester, and the support band, and everybody walked out, were a band called The Damned. I'd never seen anything like it, and I thought, I've got to do something like that. And Mike here, who's still with us today, Mike was, he'd come to see me do another gig with another band, and cut a long story short, we said, well, let's give this a go. Well, let's make some fun records in the punk style. And that's basically what happened. We actually did this demo of that song, I Bought 3 Eggs, and we went to a phone box and we put money in the slot and we actually played it to the record company, and the pips were going while the coins were going in.
Answer machine up with it.
Yeah, we filled the answer machine up with it, and the record company guy, when he heard it, he burst out laughing. He said, not only is it a bizarre record, but what act tries to get into the record company by going in a phone box with it off a cassette? And he got in touch. We didn't even have a phone, so somehow he got hold of us, and we went into a big 24-track studio, recorded it, and John Peel picked up, and that was it.
So was this TJM?
It was.
That was TJM. So Mike, so back then you did that, you know, what an amazing story. You played at all the main venues in Manchester, the Unis, the Polytechnic. You played at the Russell Club, which obviously went on to become Factory. When you got signed to TJM, how much did your lives change as a band? Did you have a feeling that, right, we're going to be on The Damned and the Buzzcocks?
I thought we were going to make it. For me, I was 14, to be honest. I turned up with my mate Chris, who was the original drummer, and we blagged Eddie. We told him I was 17 and 18. I was 14, Chris was 15. So when that record was recorded, I was just turning 15. And to get back to the question, yes, we were with people at the time. At the time, when you're with these guys, you don't realise that they're going to become famous. So people like Mick Hucknall, Joy Division, the Buzzcocks, they all used to rehearse at Tony Davidson's place. So I was like a kid in the sweet shop. I'd be mithering everybody, well, how'd you do this and how'd you do that? But I think ours was the last single to be released before the label went bust, so we were a bit unlucky.
We were very unlucky. What actually happened was it came up first on a compilation album, which is now a collector's item called Identity Parade. And Tony said he had enough money left to put out, I think he did 16 singles, and ours was TJM 16. And just as it came out, John Peel picked up on it, a DJ called Peter Powell, who was a big name at the time on Radio 1. It was getting loads of airplay, and people couldn't buy it because the label went bump, basically. And that, unfortunately for us, the timing couldn't have been worse. And it was re-released years later. But that's basically the story. Yeah.
So, Mike, you know, you just said yourself, right, you thought that was going to be it, you were going to make it. When John Peel got behind it, who back then, even now, most iconic DJ in new music ever, what was that like? What was it like when you heard that John Peel was like supporting your band?
You get told that you're going to get played by, by a DJ. So you're listening to the programme. It's probably guys listening to you now. But I had no idea. I didn't think he would. But he did. But an unfortunate thing was, they spelled Eddie's name wrong. It was released Eddie Money and The Grave. So there was going to be
a lot of confusion with an American star of the same name or similar name.
But John picked up on us, he loved us. And like I say, all systems go, and then it went bump.
Yeah.
So you had an amazing couple of years, and then, like you say, the record company TJM went bang in 1980, and you decided to split up then. Why did you decide to split up and not carry on?
Geography. I mean, at the time, I left Manchester, basically, and I remember talking to Mick Hucknall about this at the time. I said, what are we going to do now? And I remember Mick saying to me, I'm going to do soul music. And I said, oh, you haven't got the voice for that, mate. I think you'd maybe get a job as a painter and decorator or something. Anyway, I did what was then, it was like soul, the band Park Avenue I was in. We were like a soul band, and we lost touch. Mike and I lost touch over the year. Mike, you did like other stuff. And
I was in some cabaret band, and then he ended up getting married and moving down to Cornwall.
Lovely part of the world.
It's lovely if you like the sea.
Hard to pick somebody up from there, mind you.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, you split up in 1980 as Eddie Mooney in the Grave. You went your separate ways. You did your thing, Mike. Eddie, you've had an amazing career in music as well. And then in 1999, you reformed. How and why did that come about?
It wasn't in 19... What actually happened was a German record label contacted me in 2009 and said, can we reissue I Bought Three Eggs? And I owned the rights to the record, basically because I never signed any contracts. So I still owned it. And he put it out as a single, a vinyl single, and it became a sort of a cult thing. The people who were into vinyl at the time loved these old records. And that we didn't reform as such. I did a few gigs on my own or with a band called V2, another Manchester band, where we'd play at the what's now called the Rebellion Festival. It was called Holidays in the Sun at the time. But years later, Mike and I got in touch, and that would have been just before the lockdown.
I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to move forward in a few minutes and talk about, when you got back together in 2019 and stuff. I'm going to play another record now, one that you actually brought out during the lockdown called How Does It Feel to Be Great. Let's play it and then let's talk about it. It is Tameside Radio. You're listening to the Dave Sweetmore Show. Eddie Mooney in the Grave alive in the studio. This is How Does It Feel to Be Great. How does it feel to be great? That's Eddie Mooney and the Grave on Tameside Radio. Eddie Mooney and the Grave are in the studio with me tonight here on the Dave Sweetmore Show. Eddie, Mike and Dave from the band are with me. So Eddie, right, we've spoke about the early days. We've spoke about, the fact that your records got re-released in like the late 90s as well. 2019, not knowing that there was a pandemic coming, you reformed. Tell us how and why 2019 was the year that Eddie Mooney and the Grave got back together.
Well, basically, a lot of people probably know that you get in touch with people through social media that you maybe haven't seen for years. And Mike and I, we'd lost touch, but through social media, we got back in touch. And, we thought, wouldn't it be nice, wouldn't it be fun to maybe try and make some more records? And it just so happened that the German record label, the guy that runs it, is a guy called Multi Boer. Lives in Munich, and he said, oh yeah, if you want to do something, we'll put it out. So initially, we got the old recordings and I remastered them. What he was after was the vintage stuff, old stuff that we did years ago, and he did these EPs with all the old stuff. But I said, look, we'll do a couple of new songs, and so we started doing new recordings. Now, our original drummer who was on I Bought Three Eggs, Chris Fisher, he died some years ago. He passed away, and so we got a guy called Ricky Medlock. Now, Ricky Medlock he's done amazing drum. He worked with the Two Tone people. He played on Blood Brothers in the West End. He's a top session guy.
He's fantastic.
Great drummer. And so we weren't playing live, but he played the drum parts, and we put them together,
Basically,
digitally.
we all recorded. There was the guitarist coming from Germany, which was Multi, because he's on it. It was me sending stuff from Glossop, that's where I live, all to Eddie. So
and at the time I'd got into record production. I've been doing it for a number of years. And so anyway, to cut a long story short, we brought out these records on vinyl, and that always was fun, the idea of having something tangible in your hand, And we've done a slew of these. We've done quite a few vinyl releases, and that particular song was How's It Feel to Be Great, was tongue-in-cheek, about conspiracy theories and all that sort of stuff. And again, our trademark is pop records with a punk feel, and we're having a bit of a laugh too. That it's meant to be fun, and that's what we try and do.
How Eddie's just described that, Mike, 40 years on from when you were doing I Bought Three Eggs back in the 70s and stuff like that, you've started writing these songs again during the lockdown, really. Was it easy to get that Eddie Mooney in the Grave sound back, or had things changed?
It was a really weird, when you play with somebody, and me and Eddie have known each other, 46 years?
Yeah, longer, yeah.
It was instantly when we're anywhere and we're jamming together, it just happens. It's just a bit of magic you have with another musician, and it's hard to capture that, but we've got it.
And we got the same. I mean, we love doing it. We love the fun of it. And I think for me, it's the fun. And when people, we get on really well. We're almost like brothers. And the thing is that doing those records, I get a laugh. I laugh at them myself. I love to tell people the titles of the records, knowing full well they're going to think we're insane. And that's the fun. Some
of the songs you've brought out so far, like Dennis Votes, Lockdown Baby, which we're going to play soon, Bone Idol, How Does It Feel to Be Great, Down the Drain. They're brilliant, brilliant songs. And I honestly believe, going back to what you just said, Eddie, I mean, we've known each other a long time as well. On social media, you did keep people entertained as well during that lockdown. Yeah. Was that something you thought about, Mike, or was it just a case of the band are back together, let's do it?
No, Eddie's totally responsible for that, because basically it was his idea to entertain people.
Well, what actually happened was, I mean, I was in the middle of a tour with one of the big bands that I work with, and I won't mention the Fortunes, but anyway, we were in the middle of a tour, and all of a sudden there was this virus thing. The tour stopped. Everything stopped, as everybody knows. And for the first few weeks, I was feeling sorry for myself. And then my partner Hazel, she said, why don't you do? People are doing stuff online, and I, didn't even know how you would do it. Yeah. So basically, it couldn't be more primitive. We got a basic speaker, a Bose speaker, no microphones or anything. I just sang in a room, and I'd do different songs, and we'd do some of our own stuff as well. And people just enjoyed it. And as people still come to gigs today, and they say during those dark times, Friday night, we'd have a laugh.
I'm going to be honest, and I've not said this to you before. During the lockdown, I've never not worked weekend nights, as you know. And during the lockdown, it was horrible. And Friday nights, I watched some of them, you performing in used to see your kitchen behind you and like your washing and all that. Clothes also without clothes on. And it was brilliant because you weren't just doing the stuff, the bands you're in. You were just doing a whole variety. And it was
fun. And it kept my voice going as well. I mean, and at the end of I did 67 of them in the end.
Is that what it were?
67.
Wow.
But in the end, it got to the stage where I was back on the road and I couldn't do them anymore because I was back on the road doing live gigs with the other bands, and so I had to knock it in the head. But I was thinking today it'd be great to do a couple of these again, me and you.
Yeah,
that's something I think we will look into.
Yeah. Talking about live gigs, well, we've touched upon it. Last time I saw you live was at Rebellion in Manchester. I was DJing. Yeah. Mick Rossi were there from Slaughter and the Dogs, and it was brilliant to see you live. Since you got back together in 2019, Mike, the gigs you've done, that one at Rebellion, you supported the Vapors last year. Have you enjoyed playing live again? Has it felt natural?
Yeah, perfectly. I'm at home. Whenever I'm with Eddie, it's just I relax because we just buzz and we bounce off each other. So, like tonight, we were rehearsing because we've got a gig on Friday. We're allowed to plug the gig.
Yeah, we'll mention that in a minute. Yeah.
So we were rehearsing earlier on, and we just bounce off each other. Eddie might lose where he's at, and I'll whisper in his ear.
It reminds me of my own lyrics.
One thing you said when I saw you at Rebellion, it was as well as great music, it was fun to watch as well, and everybody that were there loved it. You know what I mean? It was great.
We just want people to have a laugh.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never really like a Slaughter and the Dogs or a Joy Division band. We're just power pop, but we want it to be fun.
I'm going to talk about the future in a minute, but you just touched upon it. Eddie, this Friday you're playing at Barnoldswick Arts Centre. Tell us a little bit about this gig you've got on Friday.
Well, Barnoldswick Arts Centre is a great little venue run by a friend of ours called Pete Barton, who manages some of the big names like the Skids and Boomtown Rats and Big Country and all sorts of people. And it's they've had some great acts on there, and we did it with the Vapors a little while ago. And this Friday we're on with a guy called John Otway, who is, I think his well-known record is Core Baby That's Really Free. And according to the poster, it says he's as mad as ever, and I've put in on the subscript, and so are we.
It's going to be a great night. Is that sold out? Because it is a real intimate venue.
Apparently there's 2 tickets left. I don't know whether that's some PR thing or whether it's actually true, but I was told there were 2 tickets left, but I suspect there's probably still a few tickets left. But anybody's coming down, we'd love to see you.
Yeah. Going forward, I'm going to give this to you, Mike. What is the future for Eddie Mooney and The Grave? Can we expect more music coming out?
Yes, we're in the middle of writing 2 tracks at the moment. We kind of haven't finished them off yet or really put really much effort into it, but there will be new stuff in the very near future.
And what about gigs, Eddie? And you've got this one on Friday, let's be honest, that's pretty much sold out. What about gigs going forward? Can we see live dates?
Yeah, well, obviously, the thing is at the moment, because of the commitments I've got in the music business, it's not always easy for me to be free. But we are planning to do some more gigs like that particular venue. There's a place in Stockport that we do called the Spinning Top, which we've done quite a few there. Yep. With our friend Dave, who's in the studio with us from the Cathodes.
I'm going to say hello to Dave in a minute, actually.
Yeah. So and we're one idea that I'm trying to get some interest in is a package of the old TGM records bands, and we could even call it Identity Parade. But some of the bands like the Fast Cars, V2, which is the band that did some production work for. The Distractions. So an idea there would be to get a little package together and maybe do some small theatres or something like that. Because a lot of the punk fans now are middle-aged, so I think they like to sit down for a bit.
Just going to pass over to you there, Dave. Dave, you've joined us in the studio tonight. You're in a band called the Cathodes as well. Now, we've already spoke off air. We're going to get the Cathodes in perhaps a month or so. So look out for that, the Cathodes on this show. How have you got involved with these two?
Basically, I think Eddie was in the same chart, one of the charts that we're both in, and he noticed us, he liked our music, and he just got in touch. And then we talked about doing a gig together at some point, so we ended up at the Spinning Top, so that was last July, I think.
So when you met this pair of characters, what did you first think?
No, it's great, because they're great fun, so, we sort of hit it off. And, we've got more gigs that we'd like to do together as well, so...
What I will say, Dave, interrupting you, Dave's band, the Cathodes, when I heard that stuff, they're more sort of 80s-y, sort of Tears for Fears kind of, all their own stuff, and outstanding. I mean, I've got it on my playlist when I drive to gigs, and, this is a band worth checking out, really.
Well, they are the Cathodes, and a lot of people listen to this show religiously every week. We're going to arrange a date, Dave, definitely, and we'll get you on the show and do the same thing as we've done with Eddie and Mike as well. Yeah, but cheers for coming down, Dave, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
So going back, we've spoke about gigs, we've spoke about the future as well. If people want more information about Eddie Mooney and The Grave, new music, gigs, where's the best place to look?
Well, we have a little Facebook page called, would you believe, Eddie Mooney The Grave, featuring Mike Rowbottom, and we post stuff on there. There's videos when we get into these, our friend there just mentioned these various radio charts, and sometimes we get into those charts and we put stuff on there. So that's the place to look, and you can't really miss it. So Eddie Mooney The Grave, Facebook, and you'll see it there.
One thing we have got you involved with, which you probably don't need, but we're doing it anyway, is we do a thing every week called Local Music Spotlight, which basically with Quest Media, who own Tameside Radio, we feature a band every week. We've been doing it for 6 months now. Most of them are local, unsigned bands. We do articles in all the Quest Media newspapers. We put stuff online. And for a full week, from 6 o'clock Monday morning till 7 o'clock on Friday night, every single weekday show, we feature new and unsigned music. Now, we've had loads of bands that are perhaps 15, 16, 17, only be going a few months. This week we've got George Borofsky, an absolute legend in his own right. Next week it's going to be Eddie Mooney and The Grave that we're playing on every show from 6 o'clock Monday morning till 7 o'clock on Friday night. Eddie, for somebody like you who has got a huge wealth of experience in the music business, from starting out to legendary iconic bands, that you do as well. How important is it that a commercial station like this gets behind new music?
It's absolutely crucial, and what I would say to any young musicians out there is this. I've been around the block a lot, as Mike has as well, but the thing is, to get your music heard, it's really important to understand that you need to get it out to a lot of people. This station and others like it do a great job, because not only are you going to get your name out there, you're going to get your music played, because there's no point making music if nobody hears it. That's the bottom line, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And any lads and lasses out there that are starting off, the way to go, get your music together, get it recorded, and then stations like Tameside FM, and there are others, that's the way to go. And I think what you're doing, Dave, Mr. Sweetmore, is a brilliant thing.
Brilliant.
Thanks, and it really is. I'm
give you that money
serious.
in a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm deadly serious, because really it's very, very difficult, because a lot of radio stations have playlists. They only play the same songs over and over again, or where there's big record labels behind. It's very difficult for young bands and young acts this is a great opportunity, so grab it with both hands.
I think in the 6 months we've been doing Local Music Spotlight, them words from somebody like Eddie Mooney probably mean more than any other words we've had. If you want more information about Local Music Spotlight and you want to get involved, head to our website, tamesideradio.com, click on the Local Music Spotlight link, or even if it's not you, it's somebody you know in a band, get them involved, because we will feature legends like Eddie Mooney in the Grave and George Borofsky. But if you've only been in a band a month or so, we'll get you involved as well. So tamesideradio.com, Local Music Spotlight. Thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome.
Before we let you go, we're going to play one more song. We spoke a lot about the music you did during lockdown, and the next song we're going to play is by Eddie Mooney in the Grave, Lockdown Baby. It couldn't be more fitting for the music and the time you were doing. Tell us about this song.
Well, our German sort of record label, the guy that runs it, he came up with the idea of this song, and I toyed around with it, and basically we put, this came out as a single. A vinyl single as well as the digital, and it was during the lockdown, and again it's a tongue-in-cheek, it's just having fun with the concept of lockdown, and it's now become a bit of history. So when we do this on Friday night, we're going to get the crowd singing along to Lockdown Baby, Lockdown Baby. And so enjoy.
Dave, thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon with the Cathodes. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure seeing you again.
Thank you, Dave.
And Eddie, I mean, I first met you when I was about 13, 14 years old, so it's well over 30 years ago now. And so 30 years on, be talking to you about your career and the band that started it all. It honestly has been a real joy and a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Laura.